p.m. Eastern on CNN.
CNN tells it right. Your window on the world will stay in night.
CNN's Prime News lets you experience your world in an hour. Bernard Shaw, Chris Curl, and Don Farmer deliver the world's most comprehensive coverage of all the news, at home and abroad. Experience the difference that 60 minutes of Prime News can make. Weeknights at 8.
Experience live on CNN.
Newsmaker Saturday. Bringing you face-to-face with the issues and the people who make the news. The Newsmakers. From the CNN News Bureau in Washington, Newsmaker Saturday.
Presumably still engaged in talks aimed at winning the release of 2 American hostages. It is another weekend of agonizing suspense for the families of those 2 Americans, Terry Anderson and Thomas Sutherland. The Voice of Lebanon radio station this week said the 2 hostages would soon be turned over to Terry Waite. Later, it reported the conditions for their freedom had stiffened. At the same time, the cycle of Beirut terror continues. There have been 4 more kidnappings. At least 2 of the victims, West Germans, Rudolf Cordes and Alfred Schmidt. Their captors demand that the Bonn government release a suspect in the hijacking of TWA Flight 847, an act of terror that cost an American life. The United States wants the suspect, Mohammed Ali Hamadi, extradited here to stand trial for murder. And there are signs West German officials are divided over how to deal with the situation. The pressure of terrorism. Today's focus on Newsmaker Saturday. Welcome to Newsmaker Saturday. I'm Gene Randall in Washington. My guests, anti-terrorism expert Robert Kupperman from the Georgetown University Center for Strategic and International Studies, Ray Cline, former deputy director of the CIA, and Ambassador Clovis Maksoud, representative of the Arab League here in Washington. Gentlemen, I welcome you all. Dr. Kupperman, we have a late report from a newspaper in Beirut claiming that Terry Waite is meeting with the 2 American hostages, Sutherland and Terry Anderson, and trying to throw cold water on the reports that Waite himself has been abducted. But what should we make of all this? Should we, for instance, accept the theory that this mission may turn out well or very badly?
Look, I think, Gene, that we've got to always be optimistic. Mr. Waite's efforts have been largely both self-effacing and very helpful. Of course, they have been, in a way, obscured by some of the Iranian arms sales events that had led ostensibly to the release of Father Jenko and others. I think that, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but Terry Waite seems always and anxious to play the role of successful intermediary. Maybe we'll be lucky. All terrorism, all hostage-taking and bargaining is a carrot-and-stick operation.
Ambassador Maksoud, what kind of standing does Terry Waite have in the area that should lead us to believe he can be an effective broker?
Well, first of all, I think that the fact that he has now been protected or guarded by the Progressive Socialist Party so-called Druze militia indicates that there is a significant section of the Lebanese structure who would want to facilitate his task. They don't want it to be under the aura of the Iran's deal, which was sort of obscured his role before. And secondly, inasmuch as he is a man of the church and dealing with various elements who are holding the hostages with the cover of a religious party, that might have a measure of an incentive to those holding the hostages for an economical act or gesture, and that the Church of England, and inasmuch as it is within the context of European, is considered a little bit more sensitive. So in a way there are the elements, on the one hand a leader like Walid Jumblat trying to facilitate his task, secondly that he is a man of the church and therefore an economical gesture, and thirdly, that he comes from a European arena which is perceived to be a little bit more objective. I think that there might be the incentives to make his mission more successful than otherwise.
Dr. Cline, there seems from time to time to be something of an ambiguous attitude on the part of this government toward Terry Waite's activities. But doesn't his mission seem to you to be a sign that other than an apparent arms for hostages deal with Iran, we haven't been able to do all that much to get our hostages back?
Well, nobody knows how to deal with hostage holders in a logical and pragmatic way. They are playing a game of street theater for the maximum publicity and benefit to their own causes. I don't think what Terry Waite is or can do has anything to do with it. The real question is there some incentive on the part of the people holding our hostages to let them go right now? I personally doubt it. I think that they're still milking it for public advantage, and the more attention and television time they get, the better they like it. If they give the hostages back, then they have to take some more in order to keep that attention. I'm afraid they would take more if that happens.
Well, is there value in a Waite-type mission?
I think it is good to publicize the importance of getting the hostages back and the criminality of the action in holding them. Unfortunately, we tend to get in a emotional bath about the families and so on and not bear down on what I think is the crucial point. The whole world condemns hostage taking and hostage holding as an international crime, and it ought to stop. You shouldn't have to pay the people who hold the hostages to let them go.
Let's talk when we come back about the situation facing West Germany and its hostages in Lebanon. But we must take a break. We'll be back with more of Newsmaker Saturday right after this.
Good morning, Mr. Field. Diagnosis: bad cold.
Discover the future of relief. Contact 12-hour caplets. They do more than Sudafed and work twice as long as Actifed tablets. Until there's a cure, there's contact.
Mobil 1 synthetic motor oil. The technology behind it gives this driver engine protection he can depend on. And this driver. And this driver. Mobil synthetic oil technology. There's no finer engine protection on Earth or anywhere else. Mobil 1. First in the family of fine Mobil motor oils.
I'm about to offend a lot of steak lovers by covering this beautiful sirloin with ketchup. You wouldn't do that, right? Yet you'd pour ketchup on a burger. And isn't that chopped steak? Try A1 steak sauce on your burger instead of ketchup. Its herbs and spices bring out the natural flavor of steaks. It makes hamburgers taste like steak burgers. So don't cover it, discover it with A1. And save the ketchup for your fries.
There's never any time for us, no time left in a day. We're both so close and yet so far. We've got to get away.
Let American Airlines special low fares take you away with someone special.
Without a single care, we're American Airlines, something special in the air.
For your chance to join television's hottest live call-in show, watch CNN's Larry King Live.
I love open phones.
Phone in your questions on CNN's Larry King Live.
Anything you want to talk about.
Weeknights at 9 Eastern.
Welcome back to Washington. I'm Gene Randall. This is Newsmaker Saturday. Gentlemen, as you know, Mohammed Ali Hamadi is in custody in West Germany, charged with a hijacking of TWA Flight 847, which of course cost an American life. The United States wants Hamadi extradited, but it isn't that simple. 2 West Germans have been kidnapped in Beirut. Their captors want Hamadi freed in exchange for the lives of the West Germans. There have already been threats to execute the Germans if a deadline for an exchange is not met. So what do we do? Does the United States press for extradition,
If so, what price should we be prepared to pay? What price should the Germans be ready to pay? Dr. Kupperman.
Look, I have a kind of hardline view about this. The business of hostage-taking is going to just go on and on and on. Somewhere along the line, you got to take a stand. You got to stand tall. I understand the problems the West Germans are facing. It's their people, their citizens who are being taken hostage at this point. They have an election coming up, I believe, tomorrow. There's no issue that no matter what Chancellor Kohl is going to do, in the long run, he's going to be criticized on all sides. And I'm sure he's waiting. The point is that we are not in the business of sending assassins out. We cannot be in the business of bombing everybody. We've got to treat hostage-taking as an international crime. We've got to deal with realpolitik about this matter. We're going to have to deal with the symbolism, and we want to deal with the symbolism of terrorism of one form or another as crime. And if we can get these people, we went to a lot of trouble passing a law giving us extraterritorial authority to do so. If we can get Germany to concede in the matter, we will end up with counterterrorism theater.
Well, specifically then, what happens? What's the price we should be ready to pay if we get Hamadi back here?
No, I'm sorry. The price, I think, is very simple. Once the West Germans have been, let's assume that they go along with us, we are going to be the targets along with the West Germans and conceivably other countries, and we will be hit. We will have assassinations, bombings, and sometimes maybe some further kidnappings of Americans. We will be held to task.
Ambassador Maksoud, what's wrong with that hardline approach, asking for Hamadi to be returned and the Federal Republic of Germany complying?
Well, first of all, this is a decision for the Federal Republic of Germany. And I am not in a position to render advice to either the German...
Yes, but what do you see as the natural progression of events if, in fact, Hamadi is returned to the United States, extradited here?
Well, there is a general perception in the Middle East that perhaps the atmosphere here would not be as objective as it is in a European country. And to that extent, the propensity to feel more at ease in a European court than it is in an American court. Now, that perception does not reflect necessarily on the judiciary of the United States, but on the overall political atmosphere that has, in many instances, characterized general Arab-American relations.
Okay, but boil that down. What does that mean? What happens if Hamadi is returned here? What should we expect?
Well, I mean, I do not share Dr. Kupperman's view that that there is a tendency immediately to cover Mr. Hamadi by sending all sorts of people here. First of all, you have adequate security measures, and on the other hand, the Arab world is not, as people think, sympathetic either to hostage-taking or to kidnapping. And so, in that sense, I think, simultaneously, I mean, I know that this is a little bit outside the subject, but there is an important long-range plan that I hope the United States will take, is to be perceived as more even-handed on the various issues that characterize the Middle East.
Okay,
I think
but
that
let's
we cannot separate this from the overall political atmosphere.
Let's stay on this specific issue for the moment. Dr. Cline, what kind of moral leverage does the United States have with West Germany in the case of trying to extradite Mr. Hamadi, when this country has, in fact, dealt with Iran and has engaged in something most people perceive now, or a lot of people perceive to be, an arms for hostages situation?
Well, tactically, the current brouhaha over Iran is a disadvantage for the United States in this subject. But the moral leverage we have is that for several years, President Reagan has been calling for dealing with hostages firmly, severely, and bringing them to justice. The word is justice. We should insist that justice be done. Now, the point is that there are two different crimes involved. The West Germans have arrested this man for smuggling explosives through an airport, and that's one kind of crime. They have a right to try him for it. The murder was of an American citizen, and I think in the time the United States ought to insist, as we would in an interstate jurisdictional problem in the United States, on bringing Hamadi to justice here. But there's no hurry about it. I think the symbolism is the key. I think we should appear cool and fair and judicious in dealing with this problem.
So we should allow the Germans to buy time.
Absolutely. Let them have the time that is appropriate for their own judicial processes, just as we ask for our turn and our time when it is possible. And at that point, then, we should not let threats of other incidents deter us. You wouldn't stop trying a murderer or a bank robber because some of his friends might rob another bank or murder somebody. You go ahead to apply the law. That's all we're asking, is that international law be applied.
Dr. Kupperman, do you differ with that?
Only slightly. Let me say, first of all, that Ambassador Maksoud's comments, I don't really expect terrorism in the U.S. per se at all. I really expect that the incidents, if they do occur, and we have to be prepared that they will, we have to accept that contingency, which I think is likely, that there will be incidents in the Mideast and in Europe. I really don't have great differences with Ray on his views. The point, I think, is that it has become increasingly important, even on symbolic grounds, for the U.S. to be able to bring to bear the legal apparatus, the legislative apparatus that we have created, and to appear to be applying justice.
We must once again break away for a moment, but we'll be back with Newsmaker Saturday right after these messages.
I'll see you, kid. Get well soon. You know, when a friend or loved one is hospitalized, it can be scary. And today's sky-high health care costs could make matters even worse, especially since Medicare pays less than half of your average hospital bill. In fact, Medicare's in-hospital deductible and co-payments, those are the costs you pay out of your own pocket. They've been raised every single year since 1968. The Part A deductible that started at $40 is now $400. And you could pay that for just one day in the hospital. And all the other expenses you'd face during a long hospital stay could easily cost you thousands of dollars, even with Medicare. But I have a solution. So jot down this toll-free number while I tell you about it. It's the Medicare Insurance Supplement from Union Fidelity Life Insurance Company. This insurance plan matches Medicare's eligible hospital deductible and co-payments dollar for dollar, right now and every time they go up. I'm sold on it because it pays benefits direct to you, not the doctor or the hospital, unless that's what you want. And it pays regardless of Medicare or your other insurance. And what's more, if you're 65 or over, you can't be turned down for any reason. And best of all, this coverage is yours at money-saving rates. So help protect yourself against the costs Medicare leaves you to pay. Call this toll-free number to receive a free information kit that clearly explains it all. And there is no obligation whatsoever. Now, don't wait until it's too late. Get the peace of mind you deserve. Call today.
Take Danny Thomas's advice and call for this important information today. Call toll-free 1-800-228-2201. That's 1-800-228-2201, or write to Danny Thomas, Trevose, PA 19049. Call right now, 1-800-228-2201. Operators are standing by.
Welcome back. We're glad you're with us. This is Gene Randall, and the program is Newsmaker Saturday. We're discussing the pressures of terrorism. My guests, anti-terrorism expert Robert Kupperman from the Georgetown University Center for Strategic and International Studies, Ray Cline, former deputy director of the CIA, and Ambassador Clovis Maksoud, representative of the Arab League here in Washington. Ambassador Maksoud, you spoke earlier about diffusing the causes for terrorism with what you called a more even-handed American policy in the Middle East. But as you know, a lot of people see that as the ultimate rationalization for what has become a cycle of terrorism in this world. Now, is it a rationalization?
No, I think that, you see, terrorism, except for the mentally deranged, but generally, is an explosion of frustration. It's a form of manifesting hopelessness. When, at the end of the tunnel, there is hope to restore to Lebanon its unity and its sovereignty, for the Palestinians, a hope to right of self-determination, then you are, in fact, encouraging the pursuit of these legitimate objectives by either peaceful means or genuine resistance on the ground. Now, when you make it appear through your own biased position in favor of Israel's objectives, then what you're stimulating is a level of futility in any resistance or negotiated settlement. And that is the atmosphere at this time perceived when you find, for example, Israel's involvement in the Iran arms deal, because they want to keep bleeding a region in that area. When you find that the Palestinians in the West Bank do not have a sign of hope at the end of the tunnel, then you are creating a situation of restlessness. That restlessness can manifest itself in resistance on the ground, which is legitimate and internationally acceptable, and you can say it's a hopeless case, and then you have the explosion of frustration.
Dr. Kupperman, Dr. Cline, do you find any danger in that argument that it can, in fact, encourage terrorism?
No, I don't find any danger in the argument. I think that the United States government has got a dual responsibility. On the one hand, it has got to deal with the symptoms of the disease. It must deal with terrorism on a tactical basis, but it's got strategic problems as well, long-run problems. The other thing is that not all terrorists are very idealistic. Many of them turn almost nihilistic. Many of them operate many of them are fundamentally bandits. There is no question that there are deep international problems that we are not paying enough attention to, deep causal issues. But you can't say that we're going to deal with somebody's cancer, somebody's heart condition, or whatever, by worrying about long-run nutritional problems when indeed they're in deep trouble.
Dr. Cline, as a former CIA official, how do you see our approach to the tactic of terrorism? Are we doing all we should be doing?
I think we're a little clumsy about it because we, as Americans, tend to have some sympathy with the argument that the ambassador just made, that these people deserve our sympathy, and in some ways they do. But I don't think that has anything to do with the successful tactics of discouraging criminal terrorism. We must treat that as something which all the respectable Arabs would condemn, just as we would. All the Muslims should condemn it. This is not decent behavior. If we focus on that, then we apply our energies to suppressing the crimes and solving the international political difficulties of the area. But those are going to take a long time to solve, and for years we have accepted the view that it's okay to get frustrated and shoot people up or take them as hostages if your political salvation has not been assured. There are millions of people in the world whose political salvation will not be assured in our lifetime. We can't wait for those problems to be solved to suppress this phenomenon.
Ambassador Maksoud, if it is true that the Middle East situation shows no signs of being settled anytime soon, what does that mean? That for all the time it takes, we should accept that there will be terrorism bred by the frustration of those who see no future or very little future for themselves?
Well, first of all, let us say that terrorism is an aberration in the overall mainstream Arab position. And therefore, as an aberration, we share and we condemn. However, it is crucial that the question of postponement of a feasible settlement, perceived as due to the fact that Israel's power can paralyze the policy judgment of the United States on the Middle East issues, makes a feasible settlement unrealistic because of the paralysis that I mentioned about. Here is where I said a measure of even-handedness and objectivity on the part of the United States on the overall Arab-Israeli question, a perception that the United States is not as biased as it is, would help diffuse the atmosphere. It does not resolve all the issues, but it does diffuse a great deal of the tension and the poisoned atmosphere in which violence breeds.
We have just over a minute. Let me touch on this Hamadi matter. If Mr. Hamadi is extradited to this country, do you see him bringing with him a cycle of violence right here, Dr. Kupperman?
No, I don't think it's going to be in the United States. I think we're going to see a cycle of violence in the Mideast and in Europe. It is logistically a difficult matter for Mideast terrorists to operate here. I can't exclude it, but I think it's unlikely.
Dr. Cline.
I don't think it'll be a major event and probably not focused in this country. The reason it will happen is because of this argument that the United States is unfair to the Arab people, and I don't think that's correct. I think we're trying to be even-handed.
And Ambassador Maksoud.
The American people are basically fair when they are exposed to the various
And if
facts.
Hamadi comes here, what should we expect?
Well, I think it's conjectural. I think that it depends on the circumstances in which he has come. If it is perceived as if he has been forced to come here on the pressure of German public, that means that there is a vendetta in hand. If he is brought in through the proper judicial processes, then it might subside.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's all the time we have. My thanks to Robert Kupperman from Georgetown Center for Strategic and International Studies, Ray Cline, former Deputy Director of the CIA, and Ambassador Clovis Maksoud from the Arab League, representing the Arab League here in Washington. I'm Gene Randall, CNN in Washington. Thanks for being with us.
If you'd like to comment on this weekend's program, write to Newsmaker Saturday, Cable News Network, 111 Massachusetts Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20001.
This is CNN, the world's most important network.
From beloved Arthur Fiedler and the famous Boston Pop Symphony, here is one of the most beautiful music treasuries ever made. Now you can enjoy 50 of the world's most loved waltzes with all the Arthur Fiedler magic. You get 50 of the most romantic and beautiful waltzes of all time. 50 famous waltzes by the symphony orchestra and leader all America loves. 50 of the most beautiful and famous waltzes of yesterday and today. Here's all the irresistible magic of this legendary star. You get 3 of Arthur Fiedler's glorious waltz medleys. You'll hear the most uplifting and thrilling music ever recorded. Beautiful waltzes by Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops. All 50 of the world's most loved waltzes are yours on 3 records, 3 cassettes, or 3 8-track tapes. And the price, only